All right, so we're about to do another video about Masvidal and Conor. I realized I just put one out yesterday or the day before, whatever, but that was before Dana said this fight's in the works, and that actually completely nullifies my original video about Masvidal where I completely lit Usman up. I was like, what is Usman doing? Does he understand the payday he's gonna get if he fights Jorge versus these other guys? Yeah, well, you know, maybe he actually knows that, and Dana was like, yeah, you know, you would have got that payday, except I'm gonna make double the money if I have him fight Conor instead of you. It'll be the biggest fight ever, except for maybe the Khabib rematch. So, sorry, Kamaru, you're gonna rematch Colby, or you're gonna blah, 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 right? So, I retract what I said about Kamaru if it was out of his hands completely. And yesterday, when I was speculating that like, oh, maybe, you know, maybe Khabib's gonna fight GSP, that might be legit though. If Conor's fighting Masvidal, I'm telling you, it means one of two things. It means either Conor was like, I'm not waiting until after Ramadan, period. I need a fight. Or Ali Abdelaziz is like, Khabib doesn't want to fight Conor, he wants to fight GSP, who is the only fight that Dana might be like, all right, I'm going to let him off the hook and not make him fight Conor, right? So you might get to see Khabib versus GSP. Imagine that one. But can you imagine if that's what happens here, that we get to see Masvidal versus Conor for the BMF belt, then we get to see Khabib versus GSP for the, I don't know what you would even call that. They're just going to like create a belt out of left field, the best wrestler in the history of the sport belt or something. I don't know, whatever. But that fight would be bananas. So let's talk about Conor versus Masvidal, though, because, man, that is a painful thing for Dana because he loses $20 million that he normally makes at the gate when Conor fights. He said that. That hurts, man. $20 million. Okay? So Conor, you know, for the Cowboy fight, they're like, how much are you going to make for this fight? He said $80 million. Okay? Let me dissect that for you. Okay? He's not making $80 million from the UFC. He's talking about the uptick in Proper 12 sales plus whatever he makes with the UFC. Now, I think that the reason he got that fight on the books as fast as he did is because when he punched that guy in the head, Proper 12 sales were like, shoo, and he was like, whoa, I need to get in there. I need to get a win. Simultaneously, I think he, you know, sobered up and was like, oh, that's right. I'm the best fighter in the world. Or, you know, at least in his own mind, and certainly one of them. And I like how this feels. So maybe I don't need to be doing cocaine and, you know, drinking and punching old people. So I'm going to stay like this. But nonetheless, that $80 million certainly was broken out between Proper 12, you know, Reebok sponsorship or something, and the fight itself. Okay, like he's not getting $80 million from the UFC. But let's say that he made $35 million from the UFC. Totally possible. 25 to 35 is what I would guess. Well, let's say 20 to 35 is what I guess Conor makes when he fights for the UFC, like from the UFC. Check from the UFC, 20 to 35 gross that he gets paid would be my guess. And if you're Dana, that $20 million that he normally generates at the gate, I mean, you don't pay taxes on that. That's 20 million in, 20 million out to Conor. So that is a painful number to give up, because that's guaranteed money. No lockdown, 20 million additional dollars, you know? Like, people look at business like buffoons in this country. I mean, you're really, like, if you've never owned a business, people look at it like, who cares? It's a multi-billion-dollar company. What's $20 million? And you're like, it's $20 million. I mean, it's $20 million. Do you know how many people on their staff make between, call it $50K a year and $150K a year? A lot. Do you know how many people's annual salary you can pay with $20 million who fall in that range? A lot. And now you got to pay them out of other money. And that's $20 million less that you can invest in other things. I mean, like, this, it's not like that's $20 million less that's going in Dana's pocket. They're running a business. Dana's going to make his $30 million a year or whatever he makes no matter what, okay? Hard cost. The 20 mil, that hurts. But he's still going to make a lot of dough. I mean, it's going to make a lot of dough. Conor's going to make a lot of dough. Masvidal's going to make a lot of dough. Dana's going to make a lot of dough. UFC's going to make a lot of dough. And I would expect that undercard to be pretty soft, okay? What did you notice about the Conor versus Cowboy card? pretty soft, except for the Conor fight, because Conor, you have to pay him so much money that like they can't afford to put any other guys that make, you know, you know what I'm saying? Like you can only pay so many people a big number. Jorge is Conor level. I mean, I don't know, maybe not Conor level, but he's certainly like Nate Diaz level. He's got a Nate Diaz type deal now. So he's going to make $10 million for this fight. Easy. Well, that's probably like exactly what he'll make. He'll probably make $10 million for the fight. So you got Conor and you got Jorge making big money. I mean, that just is what it is. But let's talk about this. First of all, you know what I never hear anybody say? You know what I never hear anyone talk about that I think people should talk about a lot more? How about let's be happy for Jorge Masvidal if he gets this fight. I mean, for real. Like, first of all, I'll say this. I think Jorge made a lot of money for that Nate Diaz fight. A lot, right? Like, if he has a deal like Nate Diaz does, because we all know, or anybody who knows anything knows, Nate Diaz made between $9 and $10 million for the second Conor McGregor fight, okay? So I don't think that the BMF belt did numbers like Diaz and Conor part 2, but certainly Jorge made multiple millions of dollars for that fight, right? So let's say he made $3 million. Let's say he made $4 million, whatever it is. That's his first multi-million dollar payday ever. Can we just take a moment and go, it's an amazing story. If you don't know Jorge's story and the reason why I love this guy, you know what? I've had a lot of people ask me, why do you love Jorge so much? Let me tell you right now. I love the narratives. I love the stories behind the fighters. Like with Conor, I've done a video how Conor went from my least favorite fighter to my favorite fighter ever. I can't root against Conor. I can't root against Jorge. That fight's going to break my brain. But the story of why I love Conor so much has to do with his story, how he handled things as a man, but his story, right? Like the story. But yeah, so if you don't know the story of Masvidal, or Masvidal's most recent story, and how he went from, I mean, listen, Colby calls him Journeyman George. That's not an inaccurate statement until this new resurgence of his career. He's a veteran. He's fought so many guys, but he's fought in like a million different organizations. You know, he has like 13 losses. People who don't really know the sport, they see his record and they're like, 13 losses. How is this guy a huge superstar? They don't understand. He has no decisive losses. None. One decisive loss. The rest of them are super close fights that he didn't get the decision on. And that in itself right there sets up why I love Masvidal. So if you don't know Masvidal's story, I'm going to break it down really fast because I don't want to bore the people who do know it. So Masvidal lost to Stephen Thompson in a close. Actually, I don't even think it was a close one, but he lost a decision to Stephen Thompson. And he was like, I need to take some time off to like let myself heal. You know, he wasn't in a good place in his career. His manager got him on a reality show in, I don't know exactly what country, but it was a Spanish-speaking reality show. And there was no television, no cell phones, no nothing. So he was like in the jungle for multiple months, like 180 days. And he was all alone with his thoughts. He wasn't making friends. So he was in the jungle, and he said that his mind got so clear that he was like, when I get done with this, I'm cutting all the bad things out of my life. No more partying, no more television, no more distractions from doing what I was born to do. I'm going to come back, I'm going to train, and I'm going to become the champion. I'm going to become the world champion of the UFC. So he completely recentered his life. When you ask him about it, he says, when they ask him about fights from before, things that happened before that show, he says, that guy's dead. And I love how he says it. I understand it. He means it. He's like, that guy, that's a different person. That guy he's no longer with us. That's a dead person. This is Jorge Masvidal. That guy's not. I love that. I fucking love that shit. I love it. And his first fight back was Darren Till. Now, Darren Till was coming off of his first loss to Tyron Woodley, widely considered the greatest welterweight of all time at the time. I mean, I don't know if you could even argue that yet, that he's not that. You know, if he comes back and wins the belt back, there's no conversation. Well, actually, GSP is the best welterweight of all time. But nonetheless, Tyron was getting right there. Tyron beat Darren Till, and Darren Till was the number one contender. He had run through everyone. Everyone thought that Masvidal was just his stepping stone to get back in the mix. Jorge took that fight in Liverpool. Okay, Darren Till is from Liverpool. He is like the king of that area. He came out to Sweet Caroline, the entire crowd sang that song. The whole fucking crowd. Every person there was singing that song. And it was awesome. I mean, it was awesome. I was watching that like, damn, this guy has total command of this. Like, this guy he's Conor McGregor. He's Conor. Darren Till is Conor in England. Jorge is fighting to a dead silent enemy crowd. And he went in and he knocked Till the out. Cold. Like, where if they're fighting on cement, the head hitting the canvas, had that been cement, may have been a curtain call for Darren Till. Like, that's how knocked out he was. And that's when I learned in the, you know, kind of like in the aftermath of that fight, oh, Jorge's the real deal. Like, this is a different guy. He told the story that I just told. Also in the middle of his post-fight interview, Leon Edwards tried to, you know, chit-chat, oh, maybe I could be the next guy that fights Jorge after that. And Jorge pieced him up backstage. You know, 3-piece and a soda. Awesome. It's the only sport where you can literally just punch a guy in the face on camera and never get charges pressed. It's hilarious. I mean, they're fighters. It is what it is. But, you know, like, that's the sport, and that's Jorge. And everyone's reaction to that was hilarious. They're like, dude, everybody keeps telling you, don't sleep on Masvidal. Don't talk unless you're ready to throw down with Masvidal. You gotta love that. Like, you have to love that. Now, Conor obviously is my guy, and Conor is in this different. It's different, but it's the same. Both of them had like I'm gonna make this happen, you know. Now Conor is at this place where he has done it and he's here. He lost it a little bit, but he's like, oh, I need to maintain here. Jorge is here. He's on the ascension. Now, I don't think that that's actually going to play very much into this fight because I think both of these guys are in an incredible headspace. But now let's break this fight down. And this is a very challenging fight to break down, and I'll tell you why. Both of these guys have surgical, incredible stand-up, okay? Now, you're never going to get me to say that anyone has better stand-up than Conor, okay? Because they don't. Conor's stand-up is second to none. And I love, you want to hear the easiest way to uncover a casual fan who doesn't know shit about this sport? Have them tell you that Khabib knocking Conor down means Khabib has better stand-up than Conor, okay? And you're like, oh, okay, so you're a moron who doesn't understand the sport. Oh, Khabib has better stand-up than Conor? Tell you what, let's take takedowns out of the equation and let's just have them, you know, bare-knuckle kickbox, and let's see how that goes for Khabib. I mean, okay, Khabib knocked Conor down because Conor is so concerned with getting taken down that he's literally looking down at his torso, waiting to sprawl in case he shoots on him, and then Khabib faked like he was going to shoot and threw an overhand right that Conor didn't see coming, okay? That's not better stand-up. That is being so dominant on the ground, so dominant in wrestling, that the best stand-up fighter in the UFC has to be completely dead focused on it to the point where a vastly inferior striker could land a heavy overhand right on a guy who never gets heavy shots landed on him when he's fresh, right? I mean, never. Go watch the first round of every Conor McGregor fight when he's fighting fresh, okay? Because obviously everybody knows one of his challenges is his wind, right? Like, he gets tired. How many fourth round knockouts does he have, right? I mean, he hasn't got to the fourth round many times, but watching those Nate Diaz fights, even though it's Nate Diaz who you can't knock out, I don't think anybody's watching that like, oh yeah, that shot that Conor just hit him with would have knocked most people out. Like, Conor in the first couple rounds is an assassin, a murder machine. Knock you the fuck out if he hits you clean. And he's impossible to hit because his stand-up is absolutely surgical, perfect, incredible, right? But Masvidal's is very good too, like excellent. I think if you look at those two guys on their feet, you have to give the edge to Conor. You just have to, because you can't give the edge to anybody on their feet when you're fighting Conor. However, I think if you go, let's look historically at Masvidal getting hurt or knocked out, not a big sample size, as in none. So if Conor can't knock him out in the first couple rounds, and he's fighting at 170, so Conor has 0 knockouts at 170. Except for Cowboy, but Cowboy's a 155-pounder who has a very soft chin at this point of his career anyway. So if you think that that translates to, oh, he'll just knock Masvidal out. Now, he might, but you can't bank on that. You can't throw that in the Conor McGregor algorithm and go, oh, yeah, Conor has better stand-up. He'll knock, whatever his name is, Masvidal out. That doesn't work that way, right? So you give the edge to Conor in the first round for sure. But here's the other thing about both these guys. Both these guys their fight IQ is amazing. Both of these guys. If you watch that Masvidal versus Nate Diaz fight, you could certainly say that Masvidal had better skills. But if you actually know what you're watching, Masvidal came in with a game plan. Okay, like he came in with a game plan and he executed it. It wasn't just his skills. He watched Nate Diaz film and he's like, here's how you beat Nate Diaz. And then he did it, right? Like the thing about when they would, where Nate Diaz normally just annihilates guys in the clinch. How did he annihilate Jorge in the clinch? Do you think that was because Jorge? So do you think that Masvidal's just better in the clinch, or do you think he came in with a game plan and he executed it? Like every time that they got in the clinch, Masvidal got position underhooks and would smash Nate Diaz against the fence so that Nate Diaz couldn't do anything. And then as soon as Nate Diaz would try to circle out, Masvidal would explode out. Did you see that every time? Like when they would get out, Masvidal would throw him away and then try to land an elbow or throw away and then immediately be punching on his way out. He did that every single time and it worked every time. Okay? Like Nate, when he landed shots, every shot he landed was him from the outside throwing those Gumby weird angles, and then he would land on his way into the clinch. So it was like, boom, he landed one, then he came in for the next one, and then Masvidal would ship, and then he would clinch up and then press Nate against the fence. It was clearly a game plan that he executed exceptionally. And against Conor, I expect that he'll have a very, very surgical game plan. Now, executing is a different thing. The only person I've ever seen game plan Conor is Khabib. Now, Khabib, most people would watch that fight and go, oh, Khabib just has way better wrestling. Okay, well, if that's true, then how is Khabib able to not get hit by Conor when they started every round on their feet, right? Conor didn't land anything heavy on Khabib because Khabib went in with a very strong game plan of how to manage Conor while they were on their feet and then go in for the takedown, right? Now, the way that, let's pop quiz this. How does Conor land his most devastating shots on people? Anybody? Okay, so historically, how Conor lands his most devastating shots on people is when they come in and they go right hand and Conor backs up and then throws that short left over their right hand, right? Like, so they come in and they go, whoop. Conor takes a step back and then boom, it's that short right that dude, he's a surgeon with that. Surgeon. Watch the Eddie Alvarez fight. Watch the Nate Diaz fight. Watch the Jose Aldo knockout. Watch the knockout where he won the 155 belt in Cage Rage. Watch any of his fights, right? It's pretty hard to fight a guy and not throw a right cross, right? But that's the thing. You throw a right cross at Conor, and he's going to step back and then throw a left short over it that will knock you the fuck out. Now, how many straight right crosses did you see Khabib throw at Conor? You think that's a punch he doesn't use when he's standing up? It's a right cross. Everyone uses that punch, right? But Khabib didn't, because he knew that's Conor's number one counter punch that he has made work against everyone. So here's the thing. The reason he's able to do that, though, is because he is setting up a takedown where he is tremendously dominant over anyone. Now, Masvidal does not have that. He's not Khabib on the ground. Masvidal's not better than Conor on the ground. Conor has an underrated ground game, actually. It's just Conor's stand-up's so good that why would he ever use it, right? Now, I would say Conor's ground game, and this is based solely on what I've seen throughout his career, is more escape, scramble, jiu-jitsu to escape and then get back to the feet. I've never seen him use wrestling except when he took Nate Diaz down, which was because he was rocked and then Nate Diaz submitted him in 10 seconds. But when Masvidal is going to try to game plan him and then you take away a right cross from Masvidal, that is a big problem if he doesn't have a way to make up for that. You know what I mean? Like for Khabib, it's easy. I can't throw this punch? Okay, well, I'll just circle away and I'll throw these, and then I'll throw overhand rights as I'm shooting in, and then I'll take you down. That's fine. I can do that. Masvidal, different story. Now, I'm not saying that he won't have it. It's not like I watched Nate Diaz before the Nate Diaz fight, and I was like, oh, all someone needs to do is press him against the fence, make sure they have an underhook, and then explode out of the clinch and throw elbow. It's not like I saw that in advance. So obviously, Masvidal has a better fight IQ than I do. So maybe he's going to be able to see something in Conor's game that he can exploit. But just from my point of view, he can't do what Khabib did. Can't do what Khabib did. And I don't see... that, like, when you look at the Nate Diaz fight, right? Like, that's the thing that Nate Diaz has that works so well in his favor against Conor is he can't be knocked out and he has endless cardio. Okay? No idea if Masvidal has cardio that can match Nate Diaz because he hasn't been tested since he's been back. He's won everything by knockout inside of 3 rounds. Like, the longest he went was against Nate Diaz. He still looked pretty good. I mean, he had his hands on his head and was kind of like huffing after the 3rd round. But, against Conor, if Conor gets into the 4th round, I like Masvidal in those late rounds. But does he have a chin like Nate Diaz? Who knows? I mean, Nate Diaz gets hit a lot and you just can't knock him out. But what worked really well for Nate Diaz is Conor. I've said this a million times. You look at guys stand up, those guys who have mechanical stand up, like jab, 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 cross, jab, jab, cross, leg kick, jab, jab, cross, leg kick, hook, uppercut, like all the same angles. Dude, Conor has that figured out. So those really, really good mechanical Muay Thai strikers they're done against Conor. Like they're not going to win. Conor will knock them out. Okay, that's why I know he'll beat Gaethje. And Nate Diaz is the opposite of that. He's Gumby. It's coming from every angle except the ones that he's used to, right? Like this. Have you ever seen Nate Diaz, throw a hook like this? Like his are like Stockton slap with a punch that just really hurt because you didn't see it coming. You don't need a lot of force on a punch to knock a guy out or at least hurt him if he doesn't see it coming. And if you're Gumby and they're coming from every angle ever, a lot of times you're not going to see it coming. I think Masvidal kind of falls in this little Goldilocks zone where he's an exceptional striker, but if you actually watch how he fights, he doesn't do that mechanical, I only throw from the same angles thing. He's very aware of that, and so he mixes it up. But he still, has great mechanics, so who knows? The better your mechanics, the worse off you are against Conor, is my opinion. That's my opinion. Anybody who says they know who's going to win this fight has no idea what the fuck they're talking about. There's no way someone could say, oh yeah, I decisively think that this guy's going to win. Explain it to me without just sounding like a casual moron, okay? Now, I think if Masvidal wins, it'll be because Conor was unable to knock him out early, and then Masvidal hurt him and put the pressure on him when Conor was tired, and then he knocked him out late, or he wore him out and just won a decision. I think if Conor wins, he'll knock him out early, or he'll be so decisively up in the first few rounds that he wins, 3-2 on a decision. But either way, the build up to this fight will be super exciting. But no crowd for the press conferences. I'm going to say this, and I'm going to have my editor beep it out. And everybody who supports us locking down MMA. Although, I guess that's a non-issue anymore. But Jesus, I'm sick of this, man. That's what I got. Subscribe to the channel. Ring the bell, because there's nobody giving you better There's just nobody giving you better analysis than this. Certainly not as entertaining, right? I will say this, and then I will end mine. Nobody is doing analysis like this who has not fought in the octagon. I'm not calling out Shale, even though, what's up, Shale? You want a piece of this? I've called you out before. I'm not calling out Bisping. I'm not calling out any of these guys who are former UFC fighters, but any of the other ones, bring it, because I promise you, not only will I whip your ass on the mic, I'll whip that ass in real life. Not that, not that we would do that, but I'm just saying, I would. Let's go.